Just want a second opinion as far as that.
Well, probably, there's another one that he might actually refer me to. So I'm gonna call him.
Okay. You just want to make sure you have the right contractor and.
Well, what happened before, one dropped out. Some of them are never.
Okay, yep, absolutely. Context for sure.
Yeah, I just kind of.
All right.
Do I need to?
Oh, no, you're fine. The audience.
And Mural is but it's not her. And she's her daughter. Yeah, but her, she's okay. Okay. Great. Okay.
There you go. Welcome to Aging Wisely. We started this speaker series, monthly speaker series, always second Wednesday of the month from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Anything Library right from here. And I would like to introduce our team that who's hosting the speaker series. Renata and Kimberly and Cara, and we have Kelsi. Come up and just introduce yourself. Cara, would you like to? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Renata Anderson. I am a reverse mortgage specialist with Simple Reverse. We're a division of Illuminate Bank. And so I just help people access their equity, or what I really love to do is help people make a move in retirement that they think they can't afford. They can make a move and not have a mortgage payment. So that's what I do, and welcome.
Good morning, I'm Kimberly Diaz. I'm a registered nurse. I own Care Matters Always and Caring Minds Dementia Consulting and Training. So I like to guide seniors and their families very compassionately through the challenges of aging.
I'm Cara Riley, and I'm a real estate agent, but I help people know their numbers. Because a lot of times you don't want anything but numbers. So that's what I can do to help, and I work with all these people.
Hi, and there's a Kelsi Matthews. She's a Medicare specialist for insurance. And I am Sherry Creek with Ascendant Real Estate, and I have a special focus in serving real estate needs for seniors and caregiving families. And next, I'd like to introduce Thomas, who is a snack and coffee sponsor. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Thomas. I'm with Lifeway Mobility. We concentrate on helping people stay in their homes as long as they can. We specialize in things such as wheelchair lifts, stair lifts, elevators, wheelchair ramps, just about anything you can think of to stay in the home, through fully accessible bathroom remodels as well. So that's what we do. Any questions? I've got some information back there.
Yes, they have beautiful showroom in Inglewood, and I went to visit, get on the elevators, and lift chairs, and all the panels, and all interesting. It's kind of like amusement park. So. And then we were talking earlier this morning, jokingly, saying, oh, maybe we should create a skit, the movie of Thomas and I battling in front of the couple who husband wants to stay in the house and modify, and the wife wants to move somewhere else. Maybe like the TV show that, stay or remodel kind of thing, that, maybe that's in our future to create the
I'd
show.
watch it.
Yeah, create the show, we battle. So today, our topic is end-of-life planning, and we have a speaker, Kelsi Matthews, and she is an MSP, licensed pre-need consultant and owner of InMemoriam funeral home and crematorium in Bloomfield. And with over 18 years of experience, she will work with you through end-of-life planning, one step at a time. She will be presenting today on pre-planning and how to start the process when it may feel intimidating as a topic. So please welcome Kelsi.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. I like to think that I can try to make that conversation a little bit easier for families to start, caregivers, whatever your position might be, just because it is a little bit of a difficult subject to approach with folks, even though it is one service that unfortunately we all will need. I have owned and operated InMemoriam for the last 8 years, and I started that because I really saw the need for personalized death care in our community. There's been a giant uprising in corporations taking over funeral homes, and it's not to say that they're not good providers. There are fantastic providers all throughout Colorado, but I do think that death can be such an intimate moment that you want to make it feel comfortable with the person that you're working with, just because you are trusting them with the person that you love. And unfortunately, I feel like today we are price shopping more than we're actually looking for providers. And my plea as a professional is to have our consumers doing their homework ahead of time and making sure that it's something that they can take care of before you're up against the wire going, oh my gosh, we're in need of services. Again, it's not to say that you can't do that. You absolutely can. It is not something easy to talk about. But what I want to do as, again, a professional is make sure that our professionals in our industry are very self-policed in the fact that they are keeping up on their education. They are providing quality care throughout the state of Colorado. And unfortunately, I only have control over my firm and what we can offer at this point. A big part of what I do is advocacy work, so working with nurses, hospices, hospitals, making sure that they know as caregivers how to help recommend people to take care of maybe the patients that they've come to be so close with. And just really creating this continuation of care. So you have fantastic hospice care, well the next step is to have fantastic death care. We want to make sure that that's a very seamless transition for these families that have just gone through such a monumental loss and change. So with that being said, that can be a very difficult subject to start talking about. Sometimes it can be as simple as asking your loved one if they know if they just want burial or cremation. That in and of itself takes out so much guesswork. And a lot of times we'll get families that will say, you know, well, mom won't talk about it. Or alternatively, I have different generations that say, well, like, I know what I want, but my daughter won't talk about it. And that to me is so unfortunate, because what that means is that you are now putting your next of kin, whoever's in line next, to make those big decisions for you. And it goes above and beyond making financial decisions, right? This is how we're gonna honor somebody. I probably get more often than not like, oh, dad was so simple, he just said he just wanted, you know, cremation and that was it. Well, that's really great for dad, but what about us? What about those of us who are left behind? How can we try and create ceremony out of something that was so simplified. So again, I might help a family meet that wish. Sure, dad just wants a cremation, but maybe you want to be present for that cremation. Maybe you want to be hands-on with taking care of him, kind of as like a final act in order to give that back to that person. So even though it's simple, how can we make that meaningful, and how can we make that a good trajectory for kind of the rest of that grieving period? So a good funeral provider will help the family sit down and say, okay, I absolutely hear what you want. Here are some options that we can do that in a little bit more meaningful way, or maybe you haven't thought about these options. This is what I'd like to offer. And just really, again, hone in on like the human side of everything that we're doing. We can, but we don't like to honor an entire lifetime just by picking the simplest and cheapest option. To me, that's not necessarily, it's not necessarily a way to honor such a huge legacy of a person. I understand that cost considerations do come into play. There are options always. There should be options always. Just because you see a price listed somewhere does not necessarily mean that that price is what that service is going to be. So knowing the questions to ask, are there additional fees in addition to this base cremation price? Am I paying for additional, in certain cases like containers or different urns? Kind of where it does feel too good to be true, we want to make sure that our people know what questions to ask. Is it important to you that your loved one stays on site with a crematory? Is it important that your loved one not be transferred from one location to another location during that process? And those are questions that, unless you've been through the process, that you really don't know to ask. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
That's okay.
I asked this before once, I think it's legal.
Mm-hmm.
If my family plot is in Michigan, and so I wanted to be cremated and then send it there, or they said it'd be shipped UPS. Is that how it works?
So USPS, so United States Postal Service, is the only legal way to send those cremated remains. But yes, we can absolutely send cremated remains out of state. If a family member is comfortable, they can take the urn on the airplane with them. There's not any requirements for that. It's really just more comfortability and how they feel about that. But your funeral director can absolutely arrange to get cremated remains from here to Michigan.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you pack the ashes in a suitcase or wrap it in a plastic bag,
Mm-hmm.
you can take it on the airplane?
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
You don't even have to wrap it in plastic. No. I do always suggest to my families that they carry their person on, just to make sure that there's no problems. Yes, exactly. That would be horrible. Oh my gosh, like knock on wood, I've never had that happen. But I do suggest that people take their person with them on carry-on, and then just let TSA know. Yeah. I mean, and that's, in the end, that's what it is. TSA requirements, I'm getting off on a tangent. TSA requirements just basically say that the container itself has to be X-rayable. And then I always write a courtesy letter that just says, hey, this is my person, please be mindful. Because we know, unfortunately, some of those agents have rough days. But again, making sure that we have plans for when that happens is something very important. The financial component is a completely different topic. I don't necessarily want to go into that too much right now. But making sure that those plans are able to be executed is really important. Even if you're not comfortable talking to your family about it, just saying, hey, when the time comes, I definitely want cremation. Please contact XYZ Funeral Home. They'll handle everything. And, the binder of everything that you need is in my sock drawer. Something as simple as that if you're not comfortable having a conversation. Or at least letting somebody know that's very close to you where maybe those documents might be. Colorado is a first person consent state, meaning if you write down, I want to be cremated, nobody can go against that wish. Alternatively, if you say, I want to be buried, nobody can go against that wish. Just again, making sure that you kind of have those little safeguards in place. I recommend getting wills updated, so personal reps, making sure that you do have the correct personal rep in place. Just because if you don't delegate that, your personal rep actually has control of your disposition after death, even over children, even over spouses, even over all of that. Most of the time, again, knock on wood, everybody's in agreement about disposition. And when I say disposition, I'm talking about cremation, burial, actually sent out of state. Some people have plots out of state and they do choose to have their bodies sent back to wherever that cemetery is. That's a whole other conversation. But there are 7 different types of disposition in Colorado. You won't be quizzed on this, you don't need it. But there's cremation, there's burial, there's what we call removal from state, so meaning we're sending your physical body outside of the state of Colorado. There's entombment, which means that we are placing your body in like an above ground, either like mausoleum, or crypt, maybe you have a family crypt. So that's entombment. We have full body donation. So if you want to be medical cadaver and sent to those different firms, you can certainly choose that. And then the 2 newer ones in Colorado are going to be alkaline hydrolysis. It's a little bit of a misnomer called water cremation, but that's also an option. And then newest to Colorado is going to be natural organic reduction, human composting, which I'm sure you guys have also heard of. Yeah.
I paid for the plot. Does the cremation, I mean, where would it be? I mean, are you under the ground? Is it, you have to be under the ground, or can?
It just depends. So cremation in this case would be final disposition, so there's nothing else that we need to do in terms of like permitting or making sure that that's your final choice of disposition. Cemeteries are different. You would know, I think, if you chose an in-ground plot versus like what we call a columbarium. Columbarium is an above-ground like wall that we place urns into. So I feel like you might know if you were in a columbarium, they would use that language, columbarium or niche.
General place.
Yeah, I would know. You can call the cemetery and just double check, make sure that that's, they can send you paperwork, make sure you're understanding correctly. You know, that's a whole other side of things. Just because people bought the plot, you might still owe for opening and closing. That might be a question that you want to ask them. So even though you paid, you know, $2,000 for the plot back in 1999, their opening and closing fee might have gone up. So opening and closing of the ground space itself. So actually like removing the earth, being able to place the urn into the ground and then covering the earth back up. So that is how cemeteries unfortunately continue to make their money, because if they sell all their plots, there's no way to do that. So opening and closing is usually like a final expense that again, if you own a plot, whether you're burial or cremation, that you might want to check on, you know, what is today's cost of the opening and closing. And that's something that your funeral home can arrange with you at the time of need. So maybe we collect that money on the family's behalf and we're paying the cemetery. We're just doing kind of the transactional business portion for the family in that time. But that can kind of hit families hard too if they're not expecting it. You know, mom paid for everything. Well, now opening and closing at Fairmount's $2,600. So even though everything's taken care of, we still need to come up with another $2,600 to make sure her wishes
Not just
can happen.
specified, but in general, what is the average cost of a cremation?
So I can only speak on my firm. We are right in the middle. What I call direct cremation or non-ceremonial cremation is $1,849. So that's usually us picking somebody up, bringing them back into our care, the running of the necessary permits, documentation. Our crematory is on site at our facility, so when somebody is in our care, they stay in our care. And then that does include a minimum container urn. That urn is completely appropriate for traveling with. And that's a big reason why we do it, because so many people either have aging parents that they've already moved here, or possibly they live out of state and their parents are here. So just kind of ease of convenience to make sure that they do have everything covered. But $1,849 is where we sit. We are licensed and educated individuals that work at our firm. That is one thing that did change big time in Colorado, is that our legislature completely shifted after unfortunate incidences. And all I can say to that on like a personal level is so much of that would have been negated with just a normal background check. So Department of Regulatory Affairs didn't necessarily have anything in place. Our laws got sunsetted in 1981, and up until this year, we did not have to be a licensed industry.
So it's up to you to do a background check on that funeral home director?
No, you don't need to do a background check. Everyone needs to be licensed by 2027. I'm not saying that you need to do any type of, like, look into anything other than maybe read reviews. Reviews are a very good indicator of an experience that a family maybe had with that particular firm that you're looking at. Knowing that the state has to have everybody up to regulation, so you don't have to do that. But what I am asking you as consumers is, if you're talking to a funeral director and maybe you're not getting the best of feeling, move on. That's your prerogative. You can totally select a different firm. If somebody is not giving you the information that you want, move on, select a different firm. Anything that doesn't feel right about that situation, move on.
Is there like a checklist that you should be asking questions about them? Because that, people were bamboozled over wherever it was.
Sure, and unfortunately, so are our funeral professionals. So even in the industry, we have no way. You know, it's a reason they put on events like this. You want to have trusted professionals in that particular industry. No matter what we do, there are bad apples in every industry. So it's our job as consumers to make sure that we are. To kind of answer your question, no, I don't have like a checklist per se, just because families are looking for different services always. But that's why I bring it back to why I started what I do, is because it's such an intimate time. You want to make sure that that care that you're getting feels cohesive with the needs that your family has. You know, we live in a world where we get a bad haircut, we don't even want to tell our hairstylist. So having kind of the courage to maybe select a different provider is critical during those times, because we get one shot to make it right.
But how do you know you're getting what you paid for? Like those people?
Reviews, I would say.
I would say absolutely reviews, because reviews can't be taken down. So maybe, you know, once you go on there, if somebody actually did, you know, in fairness, I snoop at other funeral homes reviews all the time. And there are certain ones where it's like, you know, oh, I ordered too many folders, bad review, and I just feel so bad for the professional because it doesn't indicate any of the care that it gave to their parents. But when you see like, you know, they sat down and they listened to every single thing that I needed, or they made special accommodations because my family has different dynamics, or, you know, they were able to take a tough time and make it exponentially better. Those are the things that we want to hear. Those are the things that we want to see. And again, as a professional in Colorado, I do sit on the Colorado Funeral Directors Board. We are really raising that bar. Like, we want everyone to have a very good standard of care, regardless of what funeral home they choose. But it's going to be tough bouncing back from some of these unfortunate situations.
Are they, you said as of now, they have to be licensed. Are they, like, can I look them up on DORA?
Yep, 100%. You can absolutely look people up on DORA. Effective January 2027 is when that licensure goes into play, and that's just because we're working on making sure that all the people that have provisional licenses get pushed through, and those of us who have gone to mortuary school, passed our board certifications, have been licensed.
But even if they're not on there, in the meantime, if something were to happen, you can ask to see anything that shows that they're in the process of being licensed.
Absolutely,
or whatever.
absolutely you can. Every funeral home establishment does have to be licensed as well. The 3 that got caught were running on expired licenses. So that should be DORA's first indicator to go there, in my personal opinion, but it doesn't make anything right. I mean, there were multiple checks and balances that got lost in translation during those situations, and unfortunately our industry has taken a gigantic hit, and it's very difficult for us to get back. But when I sit down with the family and they have questions like what you're asking, I want to make sure that I am reassuring them through the entire process. I'll be as absolutely transparent as we need to be with maintaining the integrity of kind of the sacred part of what it is that I
How much is a license for a funeral home and crematorium? I mean, is it really exorbitant?
Yeah, it used to be 2 years ago it was $300, now it's $1,500, and I own 2 businesses.
That's not.
So unfortunately that's gonna fall back on the consumer. I mean, I do see that prices are gonna probably go up. And that was another thing that we did bring up to those regulatory departments, you know, is that all of these fee increases are unfortunately gonna fall back on the community. So just know that that is an ever-going battle that us as professionals are working on.
Just to get a crematorium in Broomfield, I'm sure was hard.
Oh yeah, that was,
I know.
I would never do that ever again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Here I thought it was gonna be
Okay.
easy. The firm I used to work for, it was so funny. He was like, "Well, you know, if this doesn't work, you just build down the street." And so I was like, "Okay, I will." And I did, and like you know, I'm a lowly mortician. I'm not a business professional, but unfortunately, I learned more about city permitting than I ever want to. But it's been a fantastic experience, and really just kind of the amount of different hats that I have to wear to kind of be in our community is pretty impressive. I don't even know if my parents know the full caliber of what I do. Yes, Renata.
So you had mentioned, and I was just thinking, my first question is how do you know what you're getting it? But like you mentioned, I think you can go and watch the cremation process, right, as a loved one, or you can send somebody to watch too.
Absolutely.
If you feel
Absolutely. And
strongly
we've had
about
an influx of that for people understanding that they want to be back there for their people. And that is something that I love. It is like a ceremony where there would not usually be a ceremony. We have caregivers, maybe the family's not comfortable with it, but they want their nurse that they loved so much. Or they want their social worker that was with their family to be there. They want their pastor to be there. We work with that all the time, and I feel like it's just such another level of reassurance, but also just, again, like that human ceremony that we crave, that we really, really need in order to kind of be able to get on the right path. And it's not for everyone. I'm not saying that's for everyone. Absolutely not. But for the families that do like it can be a very beautiful thing.
You were talking earlier about the different types, and so I have been hearing more about the water cremation and human composting or whatever. Do you guys do that, or what are your thoughts on that?
We do not offer that. So InMemoriam offers I should say 4 of the 7 types of disposition. Of course, whole body donation is going to be made through that medical entity. But as of right now, InMemoriam does not offer the alkaline hydrolysis or the natural organic reduction. There are 2 companies in Colorado that do offer that. Same thing, just want to make sure that everybody knows what they are getting with those specific types of disposition. I think much like cremation 50, 60 years ago, it was a brand new type of disposition, and it took us a long while to be able to kind of get all of that honed in terms of like the dignity piece, the popularity piece, why it's convenient, those certain things. And I think much like that, these types of disposition will kind of become more and more popular as people understand it a little bit more. But that is something that only as a family you can decide what disposition you want. But you can look into them. They have fantastic FAQs on their website. You can look at that. You can call a director and ask if you have more questions. But yeah, we do not
Regulated
offer.
also?
Yes, they're considered a funeral establishment.
No Viking funerals anymore.
Can you talk at all about like VA benefits or Medicaid or anything like that?
Absolutely. So with being a licensed pre-need agent, that means that I have my my license in selling insurance, even though it's a pre-need funeral plan, so it's not like life insurance or anything, it's specific to funerals. I'm also regulated very highly on that side. We work with a lot of entities and a lot of families that might be going into what we call Medicaid spend downs. So perhaps you have to liquidate your assets in order to get that state funding. Medicaid does not see funeral planning as an asset. So we can put as much into that policy that we need to cover any end of life plans. So again, cremation, maybe you want to put a memorial service in there. Maybe we need to cover, our brother's flight in from Florida to make sure that he can visit us. We kind of have like creative ways to safeguard that money to use towards end of life expenses when a person needs to have those in place. So we write those irrevocable plans, we get those enforced pretty quickly. And again, most of your funeral establishments should be offering this. This is something that they absolutely offer. I just want to make sure that, again, you're working with a licensed individual. InMemoriam works with homesteaders, and that is basically a third-party insurance provider. It's a pre-need funeral plan that releases those funds upon time of death so that we have that working capital available when the death occurs. We can start moving on getting death certificates for that family. We can do everything so that nothing is held up financially. And that goes for cases that are not Medicaid as well. It just relinquishes those funds for your funeral home to be able to work right away with your family. Not everybody has that working capital or has that line of credit anymore, and that's very difficult for families. So that's the financial piece that I said it's a little too much for today to get into, but if you do have specific questions or a specific scenario that you're in, my contact information is back there and I can help address that a little bit more individually.
Just one question on
Sure.
that. How is it dispersed? Let's say you had 3 kids in 3 different states and they needed airplane tickets.
That would be up to the person planning ahead of time to ensure that they're setting enough,
So
enough
they
aside.
identify all the things that the money goes to.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, so I might say, hey, we need to put another $2,000 in here to get all the kids here. And again, it's all about creativity. It's not like, hey, we're gonna pay for their hotel while they're here either, but we know that it's an end of life expense that they have to get here when the time comes. So it's a way of kind of taking care of, again, anything that might be a necessity at that time.
If there's any overage, is that just relinquished to the family?
So in Medicaid cases, it goes back to the state of Colorado. When it's not a Medicaid case, it does go payable back to the estate of the insured unless they designate a named beneficiary. And that would be only in the event that they don't utilize all those funds.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, I have families that still owe certain money just because maybe they wanted extra keepsakes or maybe they needed more death certificates than they planned for or something like that. So the idea of like monies going back is pretty uncommon, but there are ways to safeguard that as well.
Is there a list somewhere on what Medicaid allows? That you have in your prepaid program?
You know, I don't, but that would be something that the Medicaid consultant can help you with.
Okay.
A lot of times, again, it's gonna be just dependent on how much the individual has. More often than not, I'm met with, hey, I have to get rid of $2,500. Let's just put it in a policy. So it gets to be tricky. But that I would say Medicaid consultant, because some counties want to see different things. It should be standardized, and I'll look into maybe what I can do for my Medicaid clients for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I'll give you a referral,
Oh, good.
review, how's that, while we're talking here.
Perfect.
A year and a half ago, my grandson, Declan Kenyon, remember Auntie Kenyon? Anyway, she really has the compassion when you have a surprise death in your family to make them feel loved and to know that their son was going to be loved, our grandson, in the transfer of the body. It's so emotional, really, from when it's, you know, they're done with doing all the things they do at the hospital, and then they felt like you just carried him on wings of love. And so it was beautiful.
I'm glad that you put that together.
Thank you so much.
I second all of that. Kelsey's taken care of both my mom and dad. Start to finish through the whole thing. Set up, clean up, I mean the reception, everything. It was amazing.
It's a lot of work and it gets extra hard when we know them.
I know, yeah.
We're like the epitome of the small town, but I'm like, don't go anywhere else, I want to do it right now.
She took great care of my parents.
I was saying I too, for the past 8 years, I've had several clients, one that she even helped transport their funeral. Their plot was in LA. The mom came here, passed away with her son, and he was calling around. I was working hospice at the time, and he was calling around, and I got to his house, and he was just in tears. He's like, I don't know how I'm gonna get my mom back, and everything's so expensive. I called her. I don't know what magic words she says, but every family just feels so at ease I had another client that died tragically of a fall that shouldn't have happened, in coroner's case, and in the hospital, and coroners for days, and the family was in Chicago, and she just took care of everything.
Thank you.
So, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that was a different faith as well. So that's the other thing too. You know, your funeral home should be comfortable working with every faith that you know, any faith that your family is. Sometimes there's specific firms that work directly. Like, I'm beating around the bush to say, if you're Jewish, you can go to a Jewish firm. However, we do not. We help any and every family. And if it's something that I haven't heard of, I'm like, okay, let's try it. Let's go for it. So long as it's within my legal parameters, I will always help a family that might have different religious or cultural needs. I think that's really cool. Thank you guys for sharing. That means a lot. I love what I do. I would say majority of funeral professionals do love what they do. Like, I do not ever want these crappy stories to deter people from thinking that there are not fantastic providers throughout the state. There are so many. Veteran benefits. There are so many nice death benefits for veterans that I don't think that they know about. So if you are working with a family, or you know your client, or your family is a veteran, or you've had a veteran in your family, you can find those death benefits pretty easily, just like va.gov. Just make sure you're on the official website, not on like a salesy website. But you do not have to go to a veteran-specific funeral home to get those veteran benefits. You can go to any funeral home, and your loved one is entitled to all of those VA death benefits. Again, very specific ones you might want to look just based on their eligibility in the war period that they served, because a lot of those are changing for kind of our modern veterans. And just like a nice indicator, a nice reminder that some of our ladies are veterans now. So just making sure that we're asking if our women have served in the armed forces. Armed forces.
Kelsi, what's your husband's name? I forget.
Santiago.
When Santiago came to get my dad was only in the Air Force for 4 years. He, not a long career or anything. When my dad passed, Santiago draped him in a flag to walk him out of the assisted living building. I had no idea that was gonna happen. It was a beautiful 4:00 in the morning a.m. surprise to have that level of kindness, respect.
And it's so important. We have unfortunately some veterans that don't want that career brought up at all, and that would be something that we also will honor.
Sure.
But I think it's important to recognize again that ceremony portion. He still gave 4 years regardless of what he did. Your mom gave 4 years. you know, I mean, it's one of those things. So we never want to let that kind of go by the wayside. I think that's a very important, again, ceremony that we can lend, even if there is just a simple disposition, even if it is a simple cremation. I've had the branch come out and fold the flag at the crematory for the family.
That's sweet.
It can be that, So just again, like kind of getting creative. There are endless ways to personalize people nowadays. Like almost, I'd be here till next week explaining to you all the different ways. But only you as a family know how you're gonna best honor your person. And it's our job, again, as funeral professionals, to help meet you where you are with that.
Can I just ask one more question on the VA? Does the spouse of a veteran get some benefits?
So spouses of veterans are entitled to placement at a national cemetery, usually beyond like a living pension, which again, VA living benefits are very different than the VA death benefits. So just making sure you're differentiating. I'm only an expert in the death benefits. But spouses as well as dependent children are entitled to placement at the national cemetery as well, so long as they're again currently married. But that would be the extent of the spouse's benefits.
Well, if the veteran had died, the surviving wife, she still gets it?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
And then do you prepare the body and everything? I mean, you can do person, you prepare your person, and then it will go to the placement at the government site.
Correct, yep. So in the case of burial, Yes, we absolutely would get that person ready for burial. Family would select what casket they want, and then our firm would meet them down at the cemetery. We'll explain all the odds and ends. I mean, there's again so much that goes into it. But we would do the care and coordination to get everybody down there. Same for cremation. If a family wants to engage our services for cremation and then have us present down at Fort Logan, have us coordinate, we do have a very nominal fee to have that all taken care of, just because if the family doesn't want to be on the phone coordinating, we're happy to do it for them. And sometimes that makes it easier. You can actually be a family, you don't have to be coordinating.
Did you say the spouse of the veteran gets that? She doesn't have to pay for it to be in the
Correct.
National Cemetery?
Correct.
Did you say children too?
Dependent children, so any
So
children
minor
under
children?
18.
Or-
Mhm.
okay.
And then, I have to be so kosher with how I say this. Mentally or physically, yes, but I
So
found
if
out
they're
that's
true
not the right
dependent
word.
still.
What's that?
If they're true
Correct,
dependents, then
yes.
it's qualified.
And usually that will come with like a medical note, again, if we can't explain that the children are underage. Yeah.
You know a lot.
I do. I've been doing this for a very long time. And everything changes all the time, so I'm really good at that too. Out of the back table here, I just have a couple guides to pre-planning. I don't know, I think they're kind of fun. It's like a little survey on yourself. It's gonna ask for demographic information, personal history, vital statistics. This information is information that we collect for the death certificate. So this is really important stuff that maybe you know your mom's maiden name and nobody else knows mom's maiden name. Or maybe they're exhausted and they can't think about it right away. So this information is really cool to have and have filled out. Personal history, of course, that's just kind of going to go into more like military and fraternity stuff. Immediate family, this is more for like your family as a reference, like if anybody needs contacted. Executor of the estate, again, making sure that that's up to date in your will. You can put bank information on here if you wanted to do that. This is safeguarded at your home, so this is not anything that like we need. But this is so important for every single funeral home that you choose. It's just making sure that we have that vital statistics piece. And then on the back here, it goes a little in depth about funeral plans. Kind of a little bit more than I would even really go into with families. However, it can prompt some really good conversation. You know, I can't tell you how many people, even in the industry, know that, you know, you can have a body present at a service and then conclude in cremation. You know, people think it's just like straight to the crematory, which it's not. We give every single family the opportunity to spend time with their person prior to that cremation. Or again, if they want to be present for the cremation, they can certainly do that. But really the possibilities are so endless of what we have, that it's nice to kind of have these little question prompts to talk about with your family. Yeah.
If you plan and then information changes, how easy is it to change that with you?
Super easy. So
Okay.
like,
Just like finding something to say that it's changed?
you know, again, usually like that disposition piece is gonna stay constant regardless. So if mom wants cremation, that's definitely what she wants. There are certain things like, is there going to be any more viewing? That would be up to the next of kin at that point. So unless mom is real specific, like under no circumstances can anyone see my body, which we have a lot of those, you know, then that's kind of what we lean towards. Whereas there are certain situations where maybe the child goes out of town on a vacation and mom dies unexpectedly and they need to be with her prior to cremation. That's something that's important to them. They can still choose to do that. The disposition piece just can't change. So long as we're still honoring her cremation, that's what really matters. You know, in terms of like like these records, none of these are final until we go to file it with the state. So we're checking with the family, do you want to make any changes to this document before we submit it to the state of Colorado? Your funeral home should get you the certified copies of the death certificate. It just depends on the firm. Our firm, of course, gets them for our families. But once those are registered with the state through the funeral home, family can get those at any vital statistics department, or health departments rather. Yeah.
you speak a bit about, a little bit more about a donation and what your role would be if someone is wishing to be donated to science or?
Sure. So very rarely, my services will get engaged for a possible viewing before body donation. So I'll give you an actual example. I had a family who did not have funds to work with. They knew that their son wanted to be a medical cadaver. He was very young, he was in his like late 30s. But she had called multiple funeral homes that for whatever reason would not let her do a viewing for more than 3 people or something. And again, every funeral home has different regulations with that. I think that again is a very important part of the healing process. So we allowed 5 of her closest family members to come in and see him prior to us getting him transported off to this particular medical entity. The challenge that poses to me as a professional is that I cannot do any chemical preparation whatsoever. Everything has to be done naturally, so that we're honoring the cadaver portion of his donation. So I might be working closely with that donation entity to make sure that I'm meeting the regulations and the standards that they want to see. But all of this is happening very quickly. This can happen in like a 24, 36 hour period. Alternatively, we've had families or caregivers that have set up medical donation for their person, and for whatever reason they don't meet that criteria. So now they have to revert back to choosing a funeral home and moving forward with cremation that way. So there are, again, just very like specific situations that I would come into play with that. Otherwise, a family might work directly with that medical entity to make sure that the donation will happen when the death occurs. And sometimes families in the process of planning, they know when the death is close, or they're working with hospice, they know it's imminent. You can get that paperwork started with that medical entity or your funeral home ahead of time, so that it doesn't feel quite so overwhelming. Now, I say that also in the sense that we work with families all the time in an at-need position. Death does happen randomly. Death does happen unexpectedly. And those are the families, too, that we're able to have come in and we'll walk them through every single step of the process. So I don't want everybody to feel the pressure of getting things together, but it is like the business portion, just like everything else you would do for your family at end of life. Making sure your bank accounts are in order, making sure that, again, your executor is in place, making sure your POA is in place, making sure all of those pieces. I feel like funeral planning is just another piece of that puzzle.
Do you help the family make a decision on the medical entity? Or talk about the options that are available to the family?
Usually,
it's different for a younger person than it would be
sure.
for an older.
Usually not. I would suggest that family at that time either call those places and make sure. There's only a handful in Colorado, so if you wanted to look up like medical body donation, all of those places would come up, I'm sure of it. They're also different. They change their requirements all the time. It just depends. And again, much like a funeral provider, make sure you feel comfortable with your medical cadaver team.
I was going to ask, does this cremation, where does it go? Does it go in your last will and testament, or where does it go?
You can make a completely different self-declaration. I love when people have it in their wills just because it's laid out right there. But you could simply just write on a piece of paper and safeguard it with all of your stuff. We do suggest that maybe you have one witness. It does not need to be notarized. But we just say, like, maybe have your friend come in or your daughter come in and say, like, I want cremation, end of story.
Just put it on here.
Yeah, 100%. And this actually is a self-declaration.
Right.
So you can write their final disposition.
Right.
Yeah, you can write it in here if you want.
What is it called?
Final disposition.
It's on the,
It's on the back.
it's on the very back.
Oh, okay.
Would it be the same as just getting it notarized?
Yeah, you can get it notarized. It's just not legally necessary.
Okay.
What about organ donation, Kelsi? Do you work with?
Yep, so lucky for you guys, I also worked for an organ donation entity for 5 years. But we are very, we're an advocacy firm for our families that do choose to have donation for tissue and organ. That's going to be in regards to the little heart on your driver's license. That would be Donor Alliance here in Colorado. which is a fantastic organization. I am always, again, a huge advocate of families who choose to have that disposition, or I'm sorry, not disposition, choose to have that donation completed. And then once the donation portion has been taken care of with Donor Alliance, that person comes into our care and we're able to pull full final arrangements, whatever it is that the family wants. Being an organ and tissue donation or donor should not affect any type of disposition that your family chooses. And again, your funeral director should support that.
Well, you're sure making this nice.
Well, good. That's a lot of information.
To just be comfortable with talking about it.
Good.
Because I think you're right, the kids, they don't wanna hear it. Because they don't wanna hear that their parents are gonna die.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a harsh reality. It really is. But not one of us are gonna get out of the lab. So like, if, you know, if you're talking like universally, it is something that I think is so important to talk about. And it doesn't mean it makes it comfortable. It does not. But I at least want to take the stigma out of it. I want people to be able to feel comfortable to ask the questions that they couldn't otherwise ask.
It helps too, because my parents have just recently, after going through my grandmother's passing during COVID, and the hurdles and stuff that we had to deal with that, and just how hard it was. They went, I think it was about a year and a half ago, and got all of their stuff pre-planned and everything, but I didn't know about the opening and closing, and so now it's bringing forth some questions that I can ask them, so that I just, you know, was it something that they talked about with them? How much do you think it's gonna be? So that's helpful too.
Good, I'm so glad. Yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into it. And that's why I say every situation is gonna be so individual and so unique that it's hard for me to sit here and really tell everybody what kind of checklist that they need. But calling the funeral home and asking them, what do I need to do, can be a huge start. So again, just making sure that people know where to start. Yeah.
I have a very simple question. So
Sure.
if my mom and dad are the only child, should we still have something on paper saying if something happened to them, I'm the designated, personal decision maker?
Sure.
Even though I'm the only child.
In only children instances, you are pretty safeguarded, which is nice. The only thing would be, again, if they have like a will that names somebody else as a personal rep. But as an only child, that is one advantage we have. For example, let's say, and I hate to use this as a situation, but there's two surviving parents. The parents are still going to be each other's next of kin. So unless one is like mentally like incapable of making those decisions for somebody else, like that might be where you want to say, hey, my daughter's in charge if mom can't answer these questions. Is that helpful?
Yes.
But in terms of only children, we're fine, like we're safeguarded. Now where there's 5 children, we might want to think about having someone be in charge.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is not very available, the opportunity to hear her speak and then talk about this topic. End of life planning kind of scares people away, but as she said, that's the only certain thing for all of us at some point. So thank you so much for sharing your valuable information and expertise. And next month, it's again second Wednesday of November. We're gonna talk about our topic is the mental health for seniors during the holidays. So please share our speaker series for more people to gain access. And we really appreciate the partnership with Anything Library for providing this opportunity to bring resource to the community. So when you get out, please grab Kelsi's information that is on the table. And there's a sheet of paper for sign up. So for the Anything Libraries record for how effective these speaker series are, please sign your name and if it's okay, email address, and so that Anything Library can continue to offer this opportunity. Thank you so much for coming. And have a great day. And grab snack if you.
Thank you. I don't know what these are, but they were really good, yeah. The muffins.
Yeah, we just turned it.
Thank you.
At the beginning, we all have to introduce ourselves, so, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I, but I told you.
Yeah.